Well, today I'm so excited. I have a really amazing guest. Her name is Gwen Gangi, and she is an animal communicator of all things. Previously was a dental hygienist, has always worked in kind of a medical field, medical background. She has a new business in town, and it's a pet wellness and therapy. She's the owner and part owner with Jen Moore. And Jen has Paw Print Pantry. I always have to slow down when I say that, which is at Midway Plaza on Route 161 in Niantic, which is part of East Lyme on Flanders Road. So excited to have you here with me, Gwen. And how did you get started being an animal communicator?
Really, it is my pet parrot, Charlie, who I have had for 35 years.
So your pet parrot, Charlie, taught you to communicate with the animals.
She's the reason I got into it. I had a consultation with an animal communicator for Charlie many decades ago.
Was Charlie stressed, or what happened to Charlie?
It was really just to touch base, make sure that she was happy, make sure she liked where her cage was, she was getting enough light. It was really just for gathering information. Animal communication is something that's used a great deal when there's some issue going on, but this was happily nothing like that. It was just to talk to her and to get information from her and to give her information.
So this other woman, or it was a woman, this other person was skilled in this area.
Her name was Dawn Heyman, and she ended up being my teacher, actually.
Okay, so Dawn Heyman kind of enlightened you and helped you to learn the language, I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Absolutely. And after having the consultation and then I started learning about it, reading about it, and an opportunity came up to take some courses with Dawn. And once I did that, after my first course, I realized that animal communication was what I had been doing my whole life with animals.
Okay.
I mean, I just always had a thing with animals.
Well, people say intuition, or you're just intuitive.
Absolutely.
You intuitively communicate. And my granddaughter just turned 2, and she moved back during the pandemic with her mom and dad for a while. And we have a dog at home who is 3 now, and it was just like they were on the same wavelength.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's really a very natural way of communicating. People think that our clair senses are our 6th sense, but they're not really.
Tell me.
They're our 1st sense.
Okay.
They click in first. Your gut reaction, the tightening, in your chest, hairs on the back of your neck. When someone's looking at you. They're our 1st sense. We've just been taught over the years, millennia, that we trust our speech and our hearing, and we trust our 5 senses, and we kind of push our other sense to the rear.
Okay.
We trust it sometimes, but we trust our other senses more.
Okay. So if we learn to trust our intuitive, is there a word for it? I'm just going to...
Well, it's telepathy.
Telepathy.
The full name is interspecies telepathic communication.
Okay.
That's the long
interspecies
way.
Telepathic. ITC then for short?
Yeah, or people just say animal communication. Some people say pet psychic.
Okay.
Whatever. I have always called myself an animal communicator.
Okay, so if I start to trust my ITC and just know that I am communicating with the animal, then the animal will start to kind of calm.
You're already doing it.
Okay.
You're just not recognizing it.
Okay.
So you're not recognizing how you're getting your information. If I always say, if you have ever loved an animal, you have communicated with them telepathically. You just didn't recognize it.
Okay.
Because they are intuitively telepathic. They are beacons of telepathy. It's how they communicate with each other. It's how they communicate with us. But we think, I just know their body language, or I just understand what that bark means. And you're really getting the messages that they're sending you, but you're getting them through your clear senses, and you're not recognizing it as such, because we have a tendency to think that when we know something, if we don't know how we know it, then we ignore it.
Right. Well,
that's clear cognizance, knowing without knowing how you know.
Now, how are you spelling clair?
Claire. Clair cognizance.
Got it.
Like clairaudience, clairvoyance.
Okay.
So there are all clair senses that match up with our physical senses.
No, that's really interesting.
Including taste and smell.
including taste and smell. And dogs are amazing because some veterans, I asked you if you had served in the military, and you said no, but a lot of times our military will come back with PTSD or some kind of trauma, and the pet can sense if there's a trigger for them, and then they'll have the dog watch the person's back and nose so that they can sense.
It's amazing. It's just amazing. Because there is, I mean, we all, I think, have experienced it, you know, like somebody's coming home and the dog knows before they ever walk in the door. And it doesn't have to be the same time, because people say, oh, it's because they come home at 5:30 and they know what time it is, and they have a sense of time. Well, no, because that person can come home early, 2 hours early, and the dog still knows when they're coming home, because they're tuned in. And, you know, people find telepathy, I think there's a scary kind of bit to it, because it does mean that we need to share thoughts. That's what it is. It's an energy thing.
So we're just sharing thoughts with the animal, though, and we're trying to communicate how we want them to behave, and hopefully they're communicating with us what they want from us and how they can be a happier companion in our home.
And it's also to give information, because you know, changes happen, and depending, you know, just like humans, animals have different personality types and different needs and so on. And certain ones particularly really need to know what's going on ahead of time, just like certain humans do. They just need time to wrap our heads around it.
How do we do that?
You let them know. You tell them. You can tell them out loud if you want, if it makes it more comfortable for you, or you can just send them the thought. Literally send them the thought. I mean, I do classes on animal communication, and that's, I mean, how we begin is it's like, you know, put your picture in a bubble, mentally float it right over their head, and pop it. Give them the thought.
Oh, that's really cool.
However you do it, you know, whatever works for you.
I'm a big fan of Temple Grandin. You don't know who Temple Grandin is? She's a woman who has autism, highly functioning. I think she has an association with Harvard, and anyway, she developed chutes that the animals would go through so that it wouldn't be such a scary thing for them, and so that they wouldn't get agitated when they were at the slaughterhouse, basically. So she's an animal scientist as well as like an extreme, and she's written some books called Thinking in Pictures, and that's how she organizes as somebody with very high functioning but still on the spectrum with autism. It's how she organizes her messages and how she'll practice what she wants to do and how she'll communicate or act in different situations.
How very interesting. So that is, you know, that is it. I mean, so you're in a nutshell. So she's thinking of it in a different way, perhaps, but that is it. You know, it's the thought that matters, because words really are meaningless if you think of it. Because I can, you know, you say a word in a different language, you have no idea what they're talking about. It's the thought behind the word that holds the meaning, and that is what telepathy is. That is why it's an exchange of thoughts. And it's a very natural, normal way to communicate. And I actually believe that not only are we supposed to be communicating with our animals that way, we're supposed to be communicating with each other that way. Because then there's no mix-up. You know, we can't even agree how words are pronounced, let alone what they mean. You know, it's communication beyond that. So
interesting. We had somebody come to the house one time, not with the dog that we had now, but one of our previous dogs, and our dog just did not like this person and started to growl and just would not relax at all. So there can be many reasons for that. Particularly with rescues, sometimes they remind them of somebody else. You know, they have a hat, or you know, smell like cigarettes, or you know, whatever. So it's like an association fear. Interesting.
And that does happen. Other times they're just picking up on something that is uncomfortable for them, and it could be fear in that person. That person might not be showing it, but they could be afraid of that animal, and then it's a reaction kind of thing. And it happens with humans. It also happens with animal on animal. You know, like a lot of dog aggressiveness, and that's something I work with a lot. You know, it's about teaching them, if you can, not to react to another animal's energy. You know, and trying to point things out ahead of time so there's no surprises. I mean, there's just ways to to help work with that.
To mitigate the
Right,
effects.
to try to take away the triggers.
Okay, so if we're walking down the street and if my dog sees a dog that perhaps they have not had a good relationship,
Correct.
then I would say, you know, this other dog is coming up the street,
betcha.
and that means that we don't need to get upset. We'll
Right.
just walk to the other side
And
of the road.
you might want to put them in a sit-stay,
Yep.
you know, and have them focus on you.
Yep.
You know, look at me, look at me. You
Yep.
reward them with treats.
Yep.
You know, let the other guy go by. What a good boy. You
Right.
know?
So you're really strong on positive reinforcement
Absolutely.
and giving them as much praise for
Absolutely.
the appropriate behavior.
Absolutely.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's how we all respond better, right? I mean, they're just like us.
Absolutely.
You know, so, you know, when you also, there's part of it is also letting go of expectations to a certain degree. I mean, you have to accept them for who they are. And you might have a dog that really is a home dog. You know what I mean? They're a rescue. They've had so much stuff. They're great at home and they're great with the family, but they get outside the house and all their triggers, all their bells start going off. You might have to just know that that's okay, and that to keep that dog home isn't punishing that dog. Even though you bring your other one out to the park and you feel like, oh my God, this one's staying home. It's not. It's okay. I want to be home. I'm safe here. And that's the kind of information that we exchange.
Okay.
And puts everybody on the same page. So people's needs are getting met and the animals' needs are getting met.
Sounds like it's just really being respectful of that personality or dogality. Is there such a
Absolutely.
word of that
Yeah, well,
essence of who that
yes,
person is?
Of the beingness. You know, we're all beings, whatever we look like. And so it's letting them be whomever or whatever they are.
That's really interesting.
And accepting that and working, and I say this all the time, it has to work for you in your life, in your circumstances. You know, for some people, the dog can't get on the bed. And for other people, I want to sleep with a dog every night, you know, so it depends upon what works for you.
What the rules are.
And it doesn't matter what they are.
Right.
It's whatever works for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you worked with Charlie, then that was a parrot,
Yeah.
and then I heard a story of a goldfish.
A goldfish.
That wasn't that you that was telling somebody about a goldfish? No.
I have worked, I mean, believe me, I've spoken to goldfish before.
Okay, so tell me about goldfish.
Well, they, again, there's a community within a tank, okay?
Sure.
And there are personalities within those fish.
Sure.
And there are some that when you know, you have to remove them from the tank for one reason or another. But it's really not different than anything else.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So if they're attacking other fish or whatever, I mean, sometimes you can get around it and sometimes you can't.
So it's just a little microcosm of society, and we need to be
is.
respectful that that's their little
world.
tank or cove or
Absolutely.
or
And I've communicated with insects before.
insects.
Absolutely.
Can
Every
you
being,
tell-
if there is life, that's all that you need.
Right. Well, I have had some interesting experiences with bees or yellow jackets,
Betcha.
and I'll be in my yard and I'll think this yard's big enough for both of us. Like,
Right.
you don't need to like hover around me, but
Right.
anymore I don't trust it so much. I see it coming. I'm like, oh, I guess I'll head in.
Right,
So,
and sometimes, you know, again, just like sometimes they'll be cooperative and sometimes they won't.
oh, okay.
You know,
They could be like unruly
they can
2-year-olds
just
or 3.
be like, no, I like it here.
Yeah.
This hive is staying here because I like it, and I'm
Okay.
not leaving.
Okay.
And then it's like, okay, but I'm going to have to remove it, or I'm going to have to,
Right.
you know, do what I have to do.
Because I used to always think, well, my yard's big enough that we can both
Right.
cohabitate.
Right,
But
and for the most part, that works. Sometimes there's a very benign
right.
energy that's there, and you can actually feel it. You know, if you know, one way to begin to feel other energies is to get very, very comfortable in your own body.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're absolutely certain how you feel. And then when other feelings and thoughts and things come in, you're quite certain that they're not from you and that you're receiving them from something else.
Interesting. Okay. Now, your business is pet wellness. So do you
Yes.
do analysis of different animals?
I do. When they
what is
there's,
the process?
There's always an initial evaluation.
Okay.
I diagnose nothing. Okay, I'm not. It's therapy. So I have a hydrotherapy tank, which is basically an underwater treadmill. It's an amazing form of physical therapy.
So the dogs, I'm imagining kind of like a big, huge tank.
Yep, a big, huge tank that has a treadmill on the bottom.
Okay.
Goes in both directions.
And their heads above water?
Their heads above water, yep.
Okay.
I fill the tank. There's a door. I'm in the tank with them. We go in. I fill the water according to what we're working with, you know, above the stifle or above the hip or shoulder or whatever we're doing. I'm in the tank with them. I control the speed of the treadmill, and the beauty of it is because of the buoyancy of the water, they move all 4 limbs in a free range of motion way, which they can't do on land. And it is restorative insofar that it helps regenerate muscle tissue, and it also is anti-inflammatory. So it really is. I've been very, very happy with, and the people are very, very happy with what's going on in the tank and how well their animals are responding. So there's that, and I also do cold laser, which is low laser light therapy.
Okay.
It's called a cold laser because it does not generate heat. It is not actually cold. A hot laser or a full laser actually cuts tissue, like when they do surgery. So this does not have that kind of energy behind it. There's a whole, you know, thing about the watts that you use and the treatment that you're doing and that kind of thing. But it works on the cellular level. It makes the cells produce more ATP, which is the energy that the cells use to reproduce. So it makes cells reproduce faster. It also makes your body release endorphins and prostaglandins, which are the feel-good hormones.
Right.
And, you know, it just expedites healing.
Nice.
So be it a surgical wound or a wound they receive or like a sore muscle, a tendon.
So what is
ACLs.
ATP?
ATP is the energy. It is I'm not going to be able to say it. Something triphosphate.
So it's a chemical.
It's a chemical.
Okay.
It is an enzyme that the cells release as energy, and it helps cell reproduction. It comes from the mitochondria, which is a portion of the cell. And it works in a couple different ways, but it works with the what surrounds the cell, like the cell wall. So it just reproduces the cells faster. There are a few contraindications for cold laser, which would be cancer.
Oh.
You don't want those cells to reproduce faster.
Right, of course.
You don't use it on a pregnant animal, or at least not on the belly of a pregnant. You know, so there are certain contraindications with that.
Okay. So then you also do some, not aromatherapy, maybe you do. You do aromatherapy.
I just do that for me.
Okay, so what are the fragrances that are best perhaps for?
Well, there are a few, you know, depending upon what, you know, different companies have certain different mixes that they use. I tend to use ones that are calming, you know, stress away kind of
vanilla,
a thing.
lavender.
Yeah, well, actually, blue tansy is one of them. It's peace and calming. There's a couple different, depending upon the company that you're getting your essential oils from. And I always get them from a very high-end company, particularly with the animals, because the animals are in and out. You don't want to take any chances.
Right.
So
I don't know about blue tansy. What is that?
Blue tansy, it's a calming, really nice smell. I'll use patchouli for grounding. I love basil, like earthy scents, those kind of things. Chamomile, you know. I tend to use the peaceful ones though, you know, just to give it help release any anxiety.
Okay. So you do that, and then do you do massage too?
I do.
Some kind of,
I do.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so I am in the process of being certified for body work, both canine and feline.
Okay.
So massage just has a whole host of wonderful side effects, I'll call them.
Of course.
You know, so brings more blood into the area. It relaxes the tissues, you know, so
it restores
again,
as well.
as well, right? So depending again, and I can combine the massage with the hydrotherapy because I'm in the tank with them, so I can be working their legs or you know whatever I'm working at the same time that they are, and I can support, like particularly with a lot of the little dogs get luxated patellas.
What's that mean?
So the patella is the little round bone in your knee,
Right.
and it sits in a little concavity in a bone.
And you said luxated?
Yes, which means that it tweaks to one side or the
Okay.
other. So it's only held in place by these two little tendons that go up on either side. And particularly in small dogs, that concavity that it sits in is very shallow.
Okay.
And the tendons get out of whack.
Sure.
And the luxation is when the patella pops out to
direction
one side or the other. It
right.
tends to be toward the medial side. But
So you can straighten it out a little bit?
So they're walking in there, and I can have my hands down there, and I can support that while they're working in the tank. So, you know, it just adds to the, and we also have jets in our tank.
Okay.
So that, it's like a jacuzzi.
Right, so that feels good. It's almost like
Exactly.
a deep pressure.
It's a massage.
Right, deep pressure.
Or if you need more, if once they get really healthy and you need more work, you can turn them around because the treadmill goes both directions.
Oh, nice.
And they can work against the jets for more resistance.
Wow, that's really interesting. So if somebody was interested in learning about this, what are some good resources, or where should we look to find out more?
For which? The animal communication or the...
Well, I think the whole thing, pet wellness, pet therapy.
Okay. There are many, many resources out there. And the pet wellness arena is very broad. So it goes from nutrition to therapies to, you know, what you're doing with your vet. So I suggest really find someone there's a ton of information out there. So as you're looking for things, find someone who rings true to you, you know, that you like what they're saying, and, you know, look at their stuff. And that will bring up questions that'll bring you to the next thing. And choose, you know, and I think this is very important, choose one area that you want to learn more about, because there's a plethora of information about everything.
Is there misinformation as well?
Yes, there is.
So,
but that's why you need to, you know what I mean? Sometimes if you try to do too much and learn a little about everything, you don't. So pick one, get comfortable with it, so you really feel, whether it's nutrition or animal communication or, you know, body work. There's so much that owners can do with their own dogs with body work. You know, acupressure, it's a wonderful thing. I do it with the cold laser, but you can use your fingers.
Okay.
There's so much you can do that, you know, extends the longevity or the, you know, the quality of their life. So.
Well, and you want that dog to be your companion, because they are such an integral part of your family. They're by your feet or at the door, wherever
and
you...
You know what, and I do so much work with senior dogs, both in the therapy and with the animal communication. I mean, death and dying and illness and treatments, it's a very big topic. And, you know, particularly when they get old and you think that they have no quality of life, and people are like, you know, really? You're keeping them around? Are you sure you're supposed to be doing that? They have an opinion. And sometimes, so often, it's like, I'm really happy on my little mat watching the world go by. You know what I mean? And I don't mind that if you have to help me to go outside or whatever, I'm happy with what I have. You know, it happens a lot. You know, and some of them have a different opinion. But they do have an opinion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So you said that you teach some classes, though.
I do.
And how would we...
So I teach them at my shop. So it's at the Pet Wellness and Therapy. I have one coming up in March. It's 2 consecutive Saturdays and Sundays, but only like 3 and it's like from 10 to 1:30 each day. And by the end, you'll be working with animals, and you'll be receiving messages, and you'll be understanding how you receive. So you'll be sending and receiving messages by the end. You know, we all should be doing this. This is not a gift for me because I'm special. This is for everybody, because we all are special, and because it would help. I believe it will help humanity and as a whole.
Right.
As a whole. It changes your perspective. It changes your idea of what is possible. It can't help but do that.
Right. When I was a little girl, I had a dog named Sandy, and it was a German Shepherd Collie, and he would walk me to school every day, and then when I got done with school, he would be there waiting for me to walk me back home. So, and everybody was like, you just have a way with dogs. And I've always kind of felt that I had this special
That connection.
bond and connection, communication, I guess.
Communication, and it's an energy connection. You know, everything is energy. And there is, and I do want to say, you know, real quickly, there is brain science and that backs up this. You know, finally, science is catching up with some things that we've known all along. And there is, you know, that's part of what I teach. I think it's very important that you understand what's going on and understand what's stopping you from doing it so you can undo that and relax into it and you know, be able to enjoy it.
What are some things that stop people from being interested or exploring?
It's not stop being interested. It's because we are really taught from as soon as we can say a word that we trust our 5 physical senses. And so, I mean, there's a part of your brain that literally screens out information. We have so much stimulus all the time that it screens out stimulus based on your beliefs. And it doesn't matter if they're conscious or unconscious beliefs. So you literally won't see something, won't hear something, won't accept something until you back it up and get it into your belief system. I mean, there's science that backs all this up, and it's really interesting, I think. But that's what stops us. It's not conscious. It's our unconscious beliefs that stop us.
I was thinking perhaps it was trauma that somebody might have experienced.
Sometimes that brings it forward, though.
Tell me, what do you mean?
In other words, you could have experienced trauma and kind of gone inward, and in that inward, you know, going inward, you open yourself up, and, you know, if you have a loved animal, they're understanding you're traumatized, and you begin to have a relationship and a communication with them. So I know people, as a fact, that have become really more comfortable with their own skills through trauma.
Well, I have some friends who don't like dogs and are afraid of dogs, and if the dog comes to my house, the dog really gravitates towards them. They want to.
They're determined.
They're determined to communicate and to have a relationship.
I'm not so bad, honest. I'm really not.
Right. Yeah. It's just the opposite of what you probably want, but it's just that.
Well, there's a lot of miscommunication that happens too, or I'll say communication gone awry, which is like you come home and you've had a bad day and you really want peace and quiet. Your dog knows you've had a bad day and they're like, "Hi, how are you? Come, pet me, play with me, get out of your bad mood," and you're like, "Oh, just go away."
Right.
And then that sets up behavior because they were trying to make you happy.
Exactly. 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 It's just like freeing yourself, I think, to the opportunity or possibility that they are there. They are therapy dogs for us. Every animal is a therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, you know, and they're in our lives for a reason.
Absolutely.
They're sometimes our best teachers. Sometimes they're our hardest teachers. But
that's true. That's very true. That's very
how
true.
it goes.
Oh. Any final thoughts? Any words of wisdom? Ideas for next generation?
Yeah, you know, play with it. Open your mind to it. One of the things I like to do is, particularly with wild animals, wild animals are awesome communicators. You know, if you see a squirrel and they're not looking at you, you know, throw the thought out there, "Hello, excuse me."
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
Can you say hi? And usually they'll turn around and look at you, or sometimes they'll run away from you, but you will usually get a response.
Is that what St. Francis of Assisi did?
Absolutely. I pray to St. Francis all the time.
That's really amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, Gwen, thank you so much. This has been just extremely fascinating.
Thank you so much for having me. I just really appreciate the opportunity to get out there. Anything I can let people know about animal communication, I'm very, very happy to talk about.
Well, I'm going to pop into your store and visit.
Oh,
so
good. Please
this is going to be fun and good to see what's going on Flanders Road.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.